Everyone's good on flow paper. RJ is now going to talk. It's important to pay attention. Alright, you go ahead. Thank you for your work.
What? 5 off, China, and then fusion.
Okay, when RJ says China then fusion, he's referring to the advantages of the affirmative. So China is the second advantage. Everyone good? Everyone ready?
First off is A-Space violation of the affirmative of other agents. They don't are conditions view for of the branches, supposed to review dictionary, 2008, not state government, the executive legislative branch, judicial branch, federal government, United States, board net 2003. That's critical education comments, while this grounds for for education. Next off is space militarization. The ASA point, uniqueness, no space militarization now. Late 2011, Obama is negotiating on an agreement limiting use of anti-satellite weapons that could occur with space weapons in general. The administration is looking to sign on the EU's code of conduct for space activities. Next is the link. Space exploration leads to militarization. Duval and hovercraft in 2006. The weaponization of space is in relationship to space exploration, while exploration in turn is embedded in military development. Military is also best interest in the dual-use technologies that are often developed in space exploration missions on NASA. With stress on science, there is nothing more than technologies developed with these missions also have potential military use. Also, weaponization causes warfare and extinction. This is Mitchell in 2001. The presence of space weapons will result in their use. Ultimately, the inflecting nature of offensive defense and the simple dose capability of space and weapon construction interpreters can be used to overcome Death Star, space warfare, but introduce useless pressure, introduce calculations with automatic trigger devices by endowing computers with authority to make warfare. Military planners could set up cities so that resist vectoral conflict. Space weapons with pre-delegated authority to fire death rays or killer projectiles would make warfare inevitable, given the susceptibility of accidents. Even a tiny projectile can do enormous damage, more than would be done by a nuclear weapon of the same size. Any nation's projected space attack would retaliate with nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons and external warfare. Space could plunge into the most destructive military conflict ever seen. Next off is the criticism. The affirmative strives to crowd out China in the space race, reduces space to a game board for domination. This is fundamentally racist, should be rejected since McDonald in 2007. Dolman is by no means exceptional. War become oblivious to the nature of classical geopolitics. Medical critique is as urgent as ever. Astropolitics constitute a political domination and a cultural imagining of space as models that are applied to the space environment, not strategic laws. On the contrary, they themselves are highly political attempts to create and sustain particular strategies, outcomes, and specific historical circumstances. So critical astropolitics must place the supremacy of such forces, always raising the question. Critical astropolitics aim to scrutinize the power politics of the expert technician as part of a wider project, giving public support and strengthening democratic accountability. Astropolitics could describe as instrumentalism, blind to its own precariousness. Dolman makes little effort to conceal his parasitism, observing that the United States is a watch of power and stands capable of presiding over the innumerable order. There is nothing inevitable about U.S. domination in space. Even if the USA pursues zero logic, astropolitics belongs to an unquestioning ethnocentrism implicit in this ideology is the notion that America must beat China into space because they are not like us. We must reject this securitization. It nationalizes violence, making escalatory warfare inevitable. This turns the cases to Grandin in 2006. By asserting the conflicts are natural between humans and brings to the obvious, so why should it be different in space? Technology is the power to take the lead, and when it's left out of devising what space control strategy would be the best in context for one portrays the situation is one of the U.S. aerospace industry is held back by the rest of the world. Only for digital conflicts are involved, and space war fighting because of the new arms race. The claims technology drive the policy and the political is not disinterested. For space warriors, if a determination is made that space weapons improve national security further analysis would map out a path to take and introduce the tools for the arsenal with these security games and security. There are unknowns. We cannot be sure of how the events will unfold if the U.S. goes further along with the first space weaponization. It gets even more problematic when security is troubled with that technology, but there is no way to against the desire of absolute security when it's doomed, whether accept the logic of terror or to reject it. I choose the latter. Next up is EXO. The President of the United States should issue an executive order via appropriate executive agencies that guarantee funding for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration goal to set up a lunar base dedicated to mining the moon solvency. Executive orders save political capital and are faster. This is Fleischman in 1976. When a president acts in an order, he avoids having to subject policy to public legislation and screening debate. They differ from congressional legislation. The president can alter an executive order simply with the strict campaign by merely issuing another executive order. Executive orders allow the president not only to evade hardened congressional opposition, but also to free up potential or growing opposition to throw Congress off balance or its ability to formulate a powerful opposing opposition. Next off is politics. Skeptical pass Obama, which critical explore this is a Bruce top 5. The House hopes to have refrigerated agreements by August, which is going to take power of the president as well. Although Republicans are generally pro-trade, some members of the party are skeptical of trade deals. The president is going to have to be out there as well, thinking about the importance of these agreements. We hope to have them finished by August. Resource Congress to have trade deals with good order support. Next, everyone opposed to spending more money on space, including the public. This is Kaufman and 2008. Bush's smart ambition was approved by Congress, but the administration approved significantly increased spending as the development of the White House rejected efforts by the money. Enthusiasm contrast with America's lukewarm public response to moon more ambition. The most significant U.S. space weakness is limited public interest. Cost exploration is a particular target. Also, skepticism is critical to the alliance and Asian stability. The failure results in alliance collapses, Huang and Kim in 2005. Increasing anxiety clouding the future of the U.S. created lots of risks started both Washington and CL. Today's most prominent issues is the possibility of reaching a free trade agreement with United States to work out. FTA would go beyond economic benefits, cooperation, economic issues, provide a strong basis from which to reinforce collaboration in the political and security arenas. The FTA would undoubtedly reinvigorate and strengthen the U.S. Bloc alliance, which has been the cornerstone of stability in Asia. Ultimately, the FTA will reinforce the alliance by establishing a positive for dialogue. Also, the Korean War risk of extinction. This is Doyle and Dawson. Now, the questions that come together have underlined the instability of the situation on the peninsula. In particular, the question is raised of whether a war will take place, when to develop a nuclear war, when to resolve on the planet. China. China seems correct to recreate the fantasy of a bipolar world. This construction ensures unnecessary violence, pain, and self-support. China represents uncertainty for our excellence. Whatever the prospect of a more peaceful world order, nothing seems more uncertain than China. Such an uncertainty is crucial to the China process of construction. Only an uncertainty can justify U.S. indispensability to continued global dominance. China as a threat was basically a metaphor for an enormously expensive Pentagon that has lost experience and requires a formidable renegade state to define its mission. Furthermore, U.S. discourse on China is a self-fulfilling prophecy. This makes it predetermined for warfare, pain, self-support. U.S. accepts China's threatening order are always intrinsically linked to how U.S. policymakers nation of China specialists themselves. They are not value-free objective descriptions of an independent and pre-existing Chinese reality out there, but are better understood as part of a kind of normative meaning practice that often legitimizes politics and U.S.-China relations and helps transform meaning practices into the China threat into social reality. It is a self-fulfilling practice and is always part of the China threat problem. And proportionally described in doing so, I seek to bring out the two interconnected themes of self-other constructions of the theory as practice inherited in the China threat literature, themes that have been overridden and rendered irrelevant and invisible, but those common assumptions. I read all the underlined. Fusion. 1. The affirmative does not have a card that says that pure He3 fusion is possible. In fact, their OLED evidence says physicists have yet to achieve pure helium-3 fusion. Also, their headbit evidence in the unhighlighted part says, after mining, the next issue is how to get fusion to work using it. The point. This means the time frame is absolutely astronomical and will inevitably be far longer than 10 years. But the point means they have no empirical data on the efficiency of He3 fusion. It's entirely theoretical. Here's more evidence on the question close. In 2007, to talk about reactors to 100,000 with helium that does little tritium, deuterium, tritium is a poor fusion process, so by bringing helium-3 from the moon, all we'll end up doing is creating a deuterium tritium fusion machine, which is the very thing that the helium aficionados wanted to avoid. Not even the upcoming ITER will be able to generate electricity from the latter reaction. The second is that the only reactor that exists right now literally consumes more power than it produces. The third argument is they have no solvency for warming. They have no evidence that He3 can be used as fuel for automobiles, only that it will be able to generate electricity. This is a huge alternative causality to emissions. Also, the helium-3 fusion reaction will require 6 times the heat of the sun. That cannot be produced with a tritium reactor. This is Williams from 2007. Fuel would have to be heated to a practically high temperature, 6 times the heat of the sun interior. That would be beyond the reach we need to come back. Also, there is no mapping of the resources on the moon, extending the time frame. This is David in 2010. Other than the flurry overlooking for water and lunar polar shadows, no serious effort has been taken to document and evaluate the mineral resources that occur in Earth's nearest neighbor. Furthermore, He3 trades off with short-term renewables. This turns the app. This is blanket work in 2011. To return to the moon and on helium-3, it competes with things that work for scarce capital and conducts the progress of things like the smart grid, needed to make innovative resources valuable as oil, and gathering now. Helium-3 moon and mining for the moon will not be affordable for several decades. This is Morrow in 2011. Economically feasible? Absolutely not. The cost of constructing and maintaining moon-based costs, the international cost of extra supporting materials to and from the moon will render it utterly pointless. Current costs are something like $5,000 per dirham to put something in a low orbit to put to the moon. Efforts are underway to lower that conceivable way that you can do this economically anytime in the next several decades. Also, there's no scenario for a terrorist attack, for cross examination, successfully stealing, sneaking in, then detonating a nuclear weapon on the U.S. soil is absolutely absurd. Second, other alternatives to He3 right now, this is McElroy in 2010. Alternatives for He3 for national security detector systems or detectors filled with boron, trifluoride, or lined with boron, which are two existing alternatives that can be employed today. Plastic fibers coated with beryllium-3 are another possible alternative. Koozies have tested these alternatives and said that they potentially will work for deployment, but they also will require hardware and software modifications and integration testing. Also, new technologies are coming to market that will greatly reduce the demand for He3. This is McElroy 2010. Across all helium-3 uses, participants said that they could be more efficient at reserving existing uses for helium-3 neutral detector systems for national security, market and development alternatives that can be used. In the short term, they expect to believe for the detectors will allow helium-3. However, several exciting new non-helium these technologies are coming on the line in the next 12 to 18 months, still significantly increased demand.